What's the deal, guys? Hey, listen, today we have a little bit of a different episode. Today, I've got a co host on with me, one of my good buddies, Iwane, and we're going to be answering questions from the community on a plant based lifestyle. So, yeah, guys, so we're here today on the show. We got a little bit of a different episode. Today is going to be a Q&A, and we got my co host, my man. Okay, so here's the big problem. You want to live plant-based and excel at your health and performance. You're looking for real ways to change your life and the world by reducing your footprint. How do we continue to perform in every facet of our lives and do it without eating meat and following the format that's been force-fed to us our entire lives? And do it on your own terms through a plant-based diet? That's the real question, and I'll give you those answers and more. I'm Marcus Watts, and welcome to the Vegan Transition. So I recorded on I recorded here, and then I also recorded on GarageBand. So, but no, man, yeah, I'm glad that we're gonna get into this. So you ready to get started?
Yeah, man. Let me get my sage on real quick.
Oh, I see you. Yeah, I see you, bro. I actually never have done any of that, but I'm interested to start doing more of it. You know what I mean? So maybe we can have a episode just where we talk about that. You know?
Bro, I got thrown off in that fucking community, bro. You know, definitely was never something I even knew anything about like a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, guys. So we're here today on the show. We got a little bit of a different episode. Today is gonna be a Q&A, and we got my co-host, my man E. Tell everybody what's up, man.
What's going on, everybody? And just out here living life and loving life.
So wait, first, bro, tell them your full name. Tell them your full name, because I mean, you're like the only E I know. You know what I'm saying? But I think your name is so cool. You know, so let them know.
Yeah, first name is Ewane. Last name is Masango. Ewane Masango. The first name, the reason I go by E is it's kind of a long story, but basically Ewane is a family name, and so you'll catch a lot of people in my family with Ewane as their last name. So since my father decided to name it my first name, I had to, like people just called me E as a nickname.
Oh, see, I'm learning more. I had no clue. Where's your family from though? On the real.
Specifically, my father's family is from Cameroon.
Okay, from Cameroon.
Yeah.
I just was watching something today. I saw some post, and it was about Jadena, and he was talking about. Have you heard the '85 to Africa album? I guess. Have you heard of that?
Someone was telling me about Jadena literally only a few days ago. I haven't heard the album.
I love Jadena. His music is just fire. But I guess it's an album it's called '85 to Africa. I have to go listen to it now, but it's supposed to be really good. But yeah. So E and myself, we have a company together, and before that, I didn't know you, but through the graces of the partnerships that developed in this, now I'm talking to you all the time, and you're one of my favorite people to just get to chop it up with. So I'm glad to have you on here, bro.
Appreciate that, man. Same here.
Yeah. So you've been, you've been working on your plant-based, journey. So I was like, yo, who better to bring on to kind of give that perspective, because you're so close to it with myself, David, and Chris. And David obviously having the most experience of all of us, but you're opening, you're seeing a whole new world now, right?
Oh, David Carter, plant-based poppy.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Right.
Yeah, it's been interesting thus far. I've just been really grateful that I've been around people who haven't, forced anything onto me, and have just really allowed the process to take place without any judgment. And I think that is the primary reason as to why I'm able to stay on the path currently.
What did you have there been any things that stood out, or that you've noticed since you've been experimenting with it a little bit more? Or is it just you learning about the health side of it that maybe you knew but you didn't really know before?
I mean, I would say the biggest thing, as a lot of people experience, is that when you really start focusing on it, you start realizing little things like the itis, or whatever the case may be, sluggishness, doesn't affect you as much. And this obviously is incorporates, breath work and water and all that type of stuff as well. But yeah, just all encompassing. I would say that it has to do with like a flow that I just noticed began happening a lot easier in regards to life in general, and not having as much of the sluggishness, from day to day.
I like it, man. Yeah, bro. It's cool to hear like the different people's experiences because especially I think people that have already been doing it for a while now and they've been through some of that. It's just cool every time you hear somebody else say like, "Oh man, I saw these awesome benefits," and now you can see them like already starting to go on their journey and like the wheels start turning a little bit more, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, all right. So we're gonna do this Q&A, right?
We're gonna do this Q&A.
All right. All right. So what we got first? Hit me. I'm ready.
First and foremost question.
All right.
Why? It all starts with why. Shout out to Simon Sinek. So why did you choose this vegan lifestyle?
Okay, yeah. For those that haven't already listened, they should go back to episode 1 because I kind of go through the whole story in depth. But in short, in 2013, I was, around like 7% body fat. I had just stopped playing basketball not too long before that. And I had my first business. Life was going great and got really sick. Came down with pulmonary embolism and 2 blood clots. So that whole journey of how they medicate you and everything that they put you through and the restrictions on diet, which were actually, when you have blood clots, they actually suggest that you don't ingest vitamin K because they put you on blood thinners, which if you have vitamin K, it stops the blood thinners from working. And just that whole experience made me want to learn more about health from a different perspective than I was currently on, which was eating meat and eating like really, pretty much like really strict paleo. And like I said, performance wise, I was doing amazing at that time. But the way that my body was responding with me now being hospitalized and, they said I wasn't going to be able to work out for 16 months. I just decided, all right, let me just, I pretty much almost died this way. Like I was in the hospital for a whole week. And, let me just try something else with that in mind. And I started doing some research. I found Fred Bishi, I found Rich Roll, obviously I found David Carter. And then I saw some people that were doing it in a manner that I was like, all right, I think I can do that. And then started experimenting, got results like that. And I got healthy. So
was there like a person specifically or an article or something that you read that got you to look at it being plant-based? Like what made you start looking for Fred and David and these kinds of people?
So, actually, before I had like officially decided how I was going to go plant-based, I had heard Fred. I heard Fred Bishi, who we got his book right here. We were just talking about Fred Bishi. I got his book right here, Healthy Journey. He's a 90-year-old guy that has been raw food-based for 50 years. He still runs 50 and 100-mile races. So, finding him and hearing him on a podcast, and he was talking about like really big feats of strength. At that time, a lot of the people that he were training with, and he's a doctor. So, he's a PhD, with his whole background based in science. I was like, all right, he probably has some good info. I think it was when that's a good question. I think I had just been hearing people speak about it for a while. I had some friends that were vegan since I was like in college. And I had told some people, hey, you know what? Oh, it was a couple of my buddies. One guy that was at my gym and then another guy that was a bodybuilder. He was doing a competition plant-based. And those guys I knew had been experimenting with it around me. So I was like, I guess I'll try it too. Like they're raving about it. But I didn't really see how it was going to work for me because like it's hard when you don't see somebody that looks like you. Like they were like smaller white guys, like under 6 foot, like, you know what I'm saying? Like didn't really have a long background of athletics. Like me, like I was the opposite. You know what I mean? 6'8", 235, 240, like everything was based in athletics. Like, so I kind of needed to see someone. And also with dealing with this health issue, this is something else. I thought that there was something, of course, like something that you could account for inside of being a Black man that was around this age, you know what I'm saying? And whose family history, was this way, where my family are from the Caribbean. So a lot of red meat, a lot of pork, a lot of like fatty foods. Or oily foods. So I thought I kind of needed to see what someone was doing like me before I could go forward and make a decision. You know what I'm saying? So like Rich Roll and those guys didn't really fit for me because they're running like 90, 100-mile, 50-mile races. And I'm like, yeah, that's not like, I'm trying to be big. You know what I mean? And then someone told me about the podcast that David was on, and that was kind of the final one for me.
Got it. And because a lot of people out there probably are like putting it in context, like how difficult would you say on a like scale from 1 to 10 that this journey was to make that transition fully? And I mean, I guess it's putting it in context with like obviously the journey of like being a pro athlete, being just human in general, right? And so all of some of these other contexts to kind of play into it as well.
Yeah. Things are a lot different than they were in 2013 and 2014. There's, so much information out now, like the websites, the Instagram accounts, the blog. It's insane. It's like in the news now. You know what I mean? Like it's spoken about, at universities. I mean, I was like the crazy one, especially coming from the community that I had come from, where everybody's like big and strong and doing CrossFit and powerlifting and playing, pro sports. So I was like a massive outlier. And I think now I would say like that journey is a lot simpler because you can get information. Like you can go find somebody like me in iTunes or Spotify, find a podcast, start listening, just binge on it and then take this stuff and apply it. And then you can go find all the sites and you can schedule calls with plant-based coaches now, you know what I mean? Directly, even through sites like Plant Built, I think, who literally links all these different like trainers and plant-based athletes and to their Instagram accounts. But back then it was a lot tougher. It was more, all right, don't really know where to start. So it's all like trial and error. It's just all experimenting, finding out how much food I should eat and like what are the best foods for me and then what foods do my body respond to most, and having to get away from the worry about like how much protein am I getting, because most people get enough protein. They don't get enough fiber. They don't get enough like micronutrients, vitamins and minerals. So like, I think that journey was a lot harder than now. It would be something where it's like, just go find, I always tell people the first thing to do is to just go find somebody. Just go find somebody that's doing it and just sit down and have a conversation with them, Find somebody that looks the way that you want to look or, is performing the way that you want to perform, even if you're not close to it, and then ask them how they did it and just start from there,
Makes a lot of sense. And would you say, I mean, obviously a lot of people like really concern themselves with like the costs. Like how would you might have spoken to this before, but like how would you as a simple level break down what the cost is of living this lifestyle versus not living it?
Yeah, so I had done I wrote one of my first blogs I actually wrote on the old website was about how I went from like $250 a week to like $60 a week. And I was actually spending more than like $300 a week. To $60 a week in groceries. And people were like, no way. And what I explained to people was this: first off, when you're eating meat and stuff, you have to, the meat obviously is more expensive, and the more like in the lifestyle that I was living before, it was like, you have to consume, a ton of protein. That's always what the conversation was, a ton of. So I was only getting that through like meat and protein powder. So I had to have a lot of it. Meat, just that alone costs, so because the rest of my diet was pretty much fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, but the bulk of it was in buying stuff like that, different meats, eggs and stuff. So when you stop shopping in stores and you start cutting out the middleman, number one, like if you can find markets and things like that, that right there will already lead you to a place where the food's going to be discounted like drastically. And a lot of people think, oh, it's more to shop markets. It's really not, because remember, when you're going to a market, you're finding the people before they sell it to Walmart or Publix or whatever your grocery store is, so they can sell it back to you. So already you're cutting that out. Second, like the packaging isn't there. Remember when you go shopping to like a shop, man, Walmart or whatever, they have to pay for shelves, they have to pay for packaging, they have to pay for people to clean the floor. That's not happening when you go to markets. So there's not the packaging that's included as well. And just your cost drastically will be down. So I would get like 2 massive baskets. And most times if I didn't cook the stuff within like 2 or 3 days, like a lot of it would go bad if I didn't prep ahead. But when you stop buying things that are in packages, you stop buying things that have to go through this process, and you stop going to the places that you normally shop, right? You're already not eating normally. You know what I mean? You're doing something different. So try to find other places to shop. That'll drastically cut stuff down. But I do think, bro, that like a lot of people will still struggle with that because when you're starting a transition, you might still be having eggs or you might still be having like a lot of the faux meats. And those are expensive. You know what I'm saying? Those are like $8, $10 a bag sometimes. And you only get like 3.5 servings out of it. You know what I mean? So the sooner you can move away from that by finding like these quality foods, you know, the better.
Okay. Okay. And then one thing that I know I've dealt with a lot, I'm sure you dealt with it in your own way, but love to hear your thoughts on it. Family, man. Like, how do you deal with
Mm.
family, friends? It's like you're not you we become like these freaks to the family. It's just like, oh, no, you're healthy and you don't eat. Do you eat this and do you eat that and all these kinds of things? It's like goodness gracious, like like how have you dealt with that psychologically? Because obviously mental health is always a thing as well.
Yeah, bro. I mean, that honestly, that's a really good one because even now when I go back, and eat with my mom, or whether it's a holiday or not, like it doesn't fail. She'll always be like, "Oh, you want me to make you some of this?" I'm like, "Mom, like I don't eat meat," and she's like, "This is her reply right here." She's like, "Still?" Like, I'm like, "This is not a phase. This is like years now. I've said that." So
It's not a phase.
in the first like three like Thanksgivings were like, kind of finding my way around. And then like the most recent Thanksgiving, they were like, okay, we got this over here for you. And so it got a little bit better. But yeah. I think that when it comes to family, that a lot of people want your family to like feel like you are, but you have to understand that like they have to have that epiphany themselves. You know what I mean? Like they have to go through the experience of saying, man, like something has to click for them. For some people, like for me, it didn't click until I got really sick when when my blood labs were pretty much telling me I was like one of the healthiest people they'd ever seen. Something's going on. And I think until they hear that statistic, whether it's about the environment and man, when I've learned, the Amazon right now is burning, you know what I'm saying? And we're going to have to do an episode on this, but do you know what one of the main causes of the loss of the Amazon are?
I don't.
It's used for livestock. That's what most of the
Mm-hmm.
Amazon has been lost to. There are
Mm-hmm.
fires that happen. There are thousands of fires that happen every year in the Amazon because they're clearing land for livestock. So now,
Mm.
a fire got out of control, and now people are saying, we have to save the Amazon. Well, if you guys really want to save the Amazon, stop eating meat. Like, really, it's just go look up the data. Just go look up this. Go look up where a lot, most of the world's livestock comes from. Go look up at what happens, and we're losing the Amazon for that reason. So, for instance, somebody might have that epiphany, and they might be like, "Wow, like I don't want to lose. I care about the environment." And then that becomes their thing, right? And some people, it's going to be, oh my gosh, that much livestock is, what I'm saying, being, raised and, slaughtered for us to have meat. I don't want to be a part of that. And then some people are going to be like, it's going to be the health reason. They had somebody in their family or them themselves, experiment with a plant-based diet. Next thing you know, cancer cells are non-existent and the doctors don't know what happened. So
Don't
you're
know what
gonna,
happened. Yeah.
you can't make somebody have that. Now, I've had some people to where like their spouses will do it, will go on a cleanse with them or something. And then they'll be like, man, these foods weren't too bad. This was actually pretty good. And they'll be down, but rarely ever do they make like that full change. And I tell people like, it's okay. Like it's totally okay for them to not, be on the same journey as you. It's not okay for you to allow that to be a reason to deter you, what I'm saying, from you wanting to, run an experiment like I always talk about, or just live the lifestyle like in full.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, and then just like when it comes to like friends and things of that nature that you've been around, they were pretty accepting of your transition as well.
Mm, no, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. But you know what? It never changes because you made a good thing earlier. We were talking about how your family's like, oh, he's being healthy. Oh, you're healthy. You're still on that healthy. I remember the same thing when before I was plant based, when I was still eating, meat and stuff, and I just didn't drink a lot anymore. And I was a drinker. Like in college and when I played pro, like I was a drinker. I never got like into trouble. I never got like, I never got in, did anything crazy, but I could hold my liquor. And so at this time, I just was, running my gym and I was focused on being as professional as I can with my body and my business. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to cut out the drinking, for different periods and just see how my body performs. And so I would go out and I wouldn't want to drink and I wouldn't want to eat all the foods that they were eating. And the amount of pressure that you got was insane. And so, it would, if I was going out and I just was trying to eat healthy, they would give me shit. If I was going out and I wasn't having drinks with them, they would give me shit. You know what I'm saying? If I didn't go out, they would give me shit. So it didn't matter. You know what I mean? And I was just like, it never stops, right? Like it never ends. And, I'm not going to let that be a deterrent for me wanting to do something, for myself. So I think that can roll over to a lot of different things for people, but yeah, they won't understand because they haven't had the epiphany. They don't feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't feel any urgency to do anything different. They're comfortable and they're good. So
that's real. That's real. With that being said, what do you see with all the things we see happening with influencers nowadays? And seeing like the curve that's changing with them. And so maybe let's say 10 years from now, where do you see the community? How even like that's how I'm seeing it. It feels like it's gonna be this wave because I mean the people who are involving themselves now are the people that change people's behaviors in the world. Like it's like, oh, Beyonce says it's cool. Then, as soon as people start finding out, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I mean, I'll try it, and then you'll be like, oh, well, this isn't that bad. It's like I had all these things that I didn't know about it. My mom was like, she went to Sprouts. I took her to Sprouts the other day. This was a growth point for us to like show her some of the different things that are there. And she was like, oh, everything here isn't organic. I was like, no, not everything here is organic. She's like, oh, I thought everything here at Sprouts is organic. So it's just like a bunch of little things that people just, from different generations just aren't aware of. And, they're becoming aware. So like 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, no. All right. And we'll make this one the last one, but,
it is the last one.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Man, I think that AG's in 10 years, man, it's going to be, by then there'll be so much more data that I think it's just going to be an undeniable thing. There are going to be two sets of data. There's going to be the data of all these people that have been plant-based and all the information that they have over the last 10 years. And then of course, comparing that to the, 10 years before that, before there was like a major boom. And then there's going to be the data of the environment, which by that, I mean, it's already proved, like been proven, but what is happening to our environment and what some of those major causes are, because people don't want to take into fact that like what's happening with the livestock and what the effect that has on the environment is being taken in. People are kind of shrugging those things off. So I think that then there will be so much more data that the whole industry will have had to change. It's already having to now, but it's going to be normal. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be, man, I feel like, in maybe not in 10 years, because there's way too much money out there in the meat industry. But, when you're talking more like 20 to 30 years, I think it could be one of those things where it's like smoking. It's like, people still do that? Like, yikes. It's like a subculture. It's like a subculture. And it's like all the people that do it literally know that I could die from smoking this. And they're like, it's worth it. You know what I mean?
Got it, man. That'll be a great future, man.
Yeah, man. No, that was good. I'm glad that we did. Yeah, we definitely should do some more of these. Next time I want to ask you a bunch of questions too, because with you come from like a different perspective of it. So it's cool to hear from people now, you know what I mean, that are experimenting with plant-based with like all the stuff that they have, and to hear like what they think is challenging and stuff. So we'll have to work that one in next time.
All right, let's make it happen.
All right, love it, bro. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, definitely fun.
Hey guys, Marcus here. Listen, I'm so appreciative of you guys coming and checking out the podcast. Thank you so much for taking your time to listen in. If you know someone that this would help, please share this podcast with them. Help us to reach as many people as possible and make a serious impact. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you get alerted when every new episode releases.